Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining me. This is Frank McNeil with Talk of the Town. And man, we got a shellacking last Tuesday, but I'm here to say all is well. We're going to be all right. We just have to get up off the ground, dust ourselves off, and continue the struggle. And the struggle continues, ladies and gentlemen, and the president elect has already started. He's asked the United States Senate to allow him to appoint his cabinet people prior to him taking office. And he's also asked the Biden administration not to appoint any further federal judges, saying it's unfair. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, former president, current President-elect Trump appointed about 50 judges during this time period in between his loss and him leaving office. He appointed about 50 judges. So, for the life of me, he doesn't seem to understand that there's only one president at a time. And Joe Biden is still president for another 70, 71, 72 days. And so he gets to take all of the action that he needs to take up until Donald Trump takes the oath of office again. And so there's pushback from the Democratic senators because they want to fill some of the judges' positions that have been vacant for a number of years, and they want to fill them before Joe Biden gets out of there because, trust me, President-elect Trump will fill every judicial vacancy with the likes of Judge Eileen Cannon down in Florida, who has dismissed his case. And man, now let's just get back to basics and get back to where we are in America. Personally, as a Democrat, I'm a Democrat, been a Democrat. So, we lost. Let's accept the fact that we lost, and let's do a sort of a reevaluation of where we are in this country as far as Democrats are concerned. Now, Kamala Harris ran, I felt, a very good campaign. And I think her campaign was hampered, in my opinion, by some of the people she had on her staff and giving her advice. And, I'm not going to, look at, I don't know all the campaign staff, but she had some good people and she had some people who were stuck in the past. And with the kind of money, and being that I have been an elected official and worked for a number of elected officials and been in the thick of campaigns in my life, in the past 10, 15 years since the Obama years, let me go back to the former President Obama. We call it money on the street. And if you recall, Elon Musk was going around saying he had $1 million for people that signed this. Basically, he was putting money on the street. Money on the street, as they say, money walks and BS talks. Money on the street. What does money on the street do? Money on the street gives you the opportunity to do things for individuals who may be reluctant, not wanting to vote. Money on the street, and trust me, both sides have done it and continue to do it for years and years on end. There are things that you can do. Gift cards, you can give away gift cards. You can't buy votes, but you can set up all kinds of events. Like if you bring your voting sticker to an event that we're having today, you get an opportunity to get a prize, or you get dinner. There's a party going on where there's food and drink. All kinds of things have happened. And then, trust me, I do know this for a fact, and I'm not going to call any names, but people are still saying, for small organizations, we want you to get out. We want to hire you as a campaign aide for today. And if you go into your community where you live and bring out the people, we're going to pay you say $500 for 2 days. So you get local people who are reluctant to vote, but can be encouraged to vote by $500 to work that campaign day for a day of election, a day before and day after. They go in and say, okay, guys, come on and go with me. And these are people who are in the community that know a lot of people. And they go in and work it, knock on doors. They know people who have told them, I'm not going to vote. Well, he goes by and says, hey, man, come on, I need you to go vote. Money on the street. Money on the street does a number of things. It can get you the use of cars. It can get you the use of buildings. And this is money on the street. And why am I talking about money on the street? Because it started, and trust me, been a campaign worker and been in this game for a while. Barack Obama, senator at the time, said he wasn't putting money on the street. He was putting money into certain ads and organizations and different things. So there was no actual, what we call money on the street, where precinct workers and captains didn't get, certain guys, when you look at, and it's based on what your turnout is in your precinct, in your ward. So Alderman in a ward where he gets, say, 70% of the vote turned out in his ward, he could command quite a bit of money. And some of them did command quite a bit of money. And so they may get $5, $10, $15, $20,000 to turn out their wards. And it was up to them to make a determination who got paid out of that $20,000 or whatever. And so that money was passed around. Heck, should I say that a lot of it stayed with that alderman? It didn't trickle down to the community, but they did trickle down some because they needed certain workers to go out and make sure they hit their numbers. And they had a number that the campaigns normally give you. We'd like to see 60, 65, 70% of the vote turnout. And as long as that alderman and the people in that precinct turned out to their number or exceeded that number, everything was fine. Nobody cared. Unfortunately, that started. Then Hillary Clinton came after Barack Obama, and she decided she wasn't going to put money on the street. And as you can see, the votes, she lost by 40,000 votes? Money on the street could have made that difference. And all I'm saying is that Kamala Harris raised basically $1 billion. New school politicians, let me call it this way, new school politicians, they believe in television ads, radio ads, and all that kind of thing. And old school politicians believe in putting money on the street, putting money in people's hands and letting them go out and, rally the people that they know that they can get and bring them in. Kamala Harris spent, I know she spent quite a bit of money. First of all, she had to travel all around. So that money, a lot of it was spent airplane trips back and forth, hotel rooms. All of that is paid for out of campaign funds. But then there was still campaign workers that was on the staff. They get paid quite a bit. And that is in itself, the campaign workers are a cottage industry all by itself. There are people that I know that I've been engaged with before that go from campaign to campaign. They go from one campaign. They'll go from Kamala Harris's campaign, Vice President Harris's campaign. The next big campaign that comes down the pike is probably the senators and the reps in 2 years. They have a history. They can point to, people know them, and to say, okay, hey, hire this guy. And that's what happens. They get hired and they go from campaign to campaign. And then a lot of them realize that, hey, I know enough about the system now. I know how to work. They end up running for office, a lot of them. They used to be on staffs of senators and reps, and then they figure out, hey, I can do this myself. So that is all the cottage industry in and of itself. And there's a lot of money to be made. And but if you want to live out of a hotel for 6-8 months out of a year, sometimes a year, that's the life for you. And if you're married, it's a hard life. If you're single, it's still a hard life, because you're moving wherever the campaign takes you. You're in Nebraska one year, you're in New Mexico one year, you may be in Nevada. Who knows where you may be? Georgia, South Carolina. It's according to where the big campaign is and where they think the money needs to be spent for have the right campaign workers to go out and run these campaigns. Now, getting back to where we are as a party, as I am a Democrat, so where we are as a party, my feelings, and this is why I wanted to do this show tonight, it's time for a reevaluation of how we put together campaigns. It's time for some of the older campaign workers to move. And it is also time for new leadership. Love Nancy Pelosi, but it's time for Nancy to go. She's done an admirable job as the Speaker of the House, first female Speaker of the House. But in my opinion, she held on too long. She's just like President Biden. He should have walked away and said, and let somebody else run. If you go back and visualize 8 months ago, 10 months ago, if you notice when Joe Biden used to come on stage, his wife was always there with him, walking arm in arm. I think that was a telltale sign that Joe was having cognitive issues then. Joe was, not himself. And he would have good days and bad days. But in the last few months before Joe Biden decided that after that terrible debate, before that, and I paid close attention, every time he would come out somewhere, she was hand in hand, arm in arm, because it's almost like Joe needed to know where to go and to get him in the right place. And so as we go back and visualize this, and you can go back and go to YouTube and see these speeches where she walked out on stage with him, and it was to get him in the right place. Fast forward now, let's say another issue. And there are some people that are really, really upset. I've been doing a lot of research. There are some people really upset with Joe Biden because after he got out of the race, there could have been a 1 week, 2 week opportunity for people to put their hat in the ring. Joe Biden, in my opinion, in his fit of anger, being somewhat forced out of the race, within 30 minutes of him resigning or saying he wasn't going to run anymore, he endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris. And I have nothing wrong with that, other than the fact now we can do some circumspection of, was she actually our best choice? I'm not saying that Kamala Harris, one, is not qualified. She's extremely well qualified. I'm not saying that Kamala Harris couldn't have won. But there was some in-house grumbling from a lot of Democrats who thought, had they been given the opportunity, they could have run a better race, or they could have got the Hispanic vote, or the white woman vote, or the white male vote. That's where Kamala Harris lost this race. And if you're doing the postmortem like I do, you got to look at the numbers. And when you go through the states, the blue wall states that she lost, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, you go through there and you look at the numbers. Joe Biden, in all of those states, ran 3, 2, 3, 5, 6% better than Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris lost white males that voted for Joe Biden. These are the people on the fence. She lost white females that were never going to vote for her regardless. And she lost the Hispanic vote in a large part because of, I can say, the male-dominated society in which they come. And this is not being negative. This is just looking at it for what it is. We still have a problem accepting women as leaders. A lot of African-American black men have problems accepting women as leaders. And let me say the big one, which a lot of people will say that's not true. In my opinion, the Democrat Party relied too heavily on the Dobbs decision, or the overturning of Roe versus Wade. And we relied heavily that women, white women, Hispanic women, black women would all come out and support that because it was something that was being taken away. Didn't materialize because Kamala Harris lost the majority of the white women vote. And that was what a lot of people were feeling, that this was the key to success. And the white women would outvote, and the black women, the numbers would be up. Why is it that African-American men and women in Philadelphia and Detroit and Milwaukee didn't come out at the same level? Had they turned out like they did 4 years ago, Kamala Harris would probably be the president-elect today. What stopped them from coming out? Now, we talk about immigration. Yes, Biden, in my opinion, Joe Biden, in my opinion, was slow on the trigger of shutting down not open borders, but the laissez-faire attitude toward stopping the flow of immigrants from the South. Economy, this is something that I felt got way out of hand. And I think our messaging on the economy was very poor. The economy for day-to-day people who don't have a bank account, who don't have a checking account, who are just everyday people who are working hard to make a living, the prices were killing them. And, Kamala Harris said she was going to go after those people who were exploiting. And if you go to the grocery store, in the little cases where there's a 20-ounce Coke, Walmart, in different stores, those Cokes, 20 ounces, are $2.20. But if you go back in the store and buy a 2-liter, it may be $1.50. How does that make sense? The shrinkage in bags of potato chips and all those kind of things. I mean, they have taken advantage of the pandemic. They've taken advantage of everything that they could, and they've raised prices, not because they had to, because they are gouging us. And I don't think the campaign was aggressive enough against that kind of activity. I don't think they were aggressive enough as far as fighting back and saying we are doing whatever we can on the immigration scene. And it wasn't enough to say that the Republicans killed the bill that would fix immigration. This should have been an ongoing. We wait, in my opinion, too long sometimes to look at the situation and say, hey, this is how we're going to fix it. Now, got to go back to another former president, and everybody was mad at him at one point, but Bill Clinton, Democrat from Arkansas, Hope, Arkansas, came in and everybody said, he's going too far to the middle. He's going too far right. Nobody thought Bill Clinton had a prayer. But Bill Clinton was able to talk the language, to reach down, to empathize. And what Bill Clinton did was he embraced a lot of the conservative action. And what he did by embracing it, it got him in the room so he could help negotiate what they were doing. And so the policies ended up not being as bad as they were going to be by the Republicans because Bill Clinton had negotiated some of the things out. We miss the opportunity on several occasions to sit down and say, okay, let's put this together. Let's do this. So here we are, November 11th, 2024, and we have President-elect Donald Trump getting ready to come in, and who knows what Donald Trump's going to do. He's got Stephen Miller, who I consider a white supremacist. I consider the president basically a white supremacist. He has Stephen Miller coming in. We know what he did with the border. He's already appointed the border guy that oversaw separation of families. What do you think is going to happen? I don't think sometimes we take into consideration seriously that elections have some serious consequences. What do you think is going to happen on the Supreme Court? You could have Eileen Cannon, God forbid us, on the Supreme Court. It doesn't matter now because qualifications, as an African American growing up, get an education, become qualified. That's the key to success. Well, that's turned on its head under Donald Trump. He's got some of the most unqualified people in positions of authority just because he can appoint them. And they have a vengeance against doing the right thing, against following the rules, following the law. They care nothing about the Constitution, the law. They care about power and getting what they want done by, as Malcolm used to say, any means necessary. So we're going to have a tough 4 years, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm here to say we have survived worse. And we're going to survive this. But we got to get smarter. And we got to get tougher. And we got to say to our leadership, you're going to do something different this time. It's time to walk away from the older people. I'm older. I know my time is past. People ask me, going to run for alderman again? Going to run for this? Going to run for mayor? No. My time is gone. I can accept that. I did as best as I could while I was there, but it's time to pass the torch. Power. Some of these people want this power, and they get drunk on power, and they don't want to give it up. But sometimes you have to wrest the power away. And what did it say? Power concedes nothing without a demand. Never will. So you got to go and take the power. And that's what Donald Trump is doing. He's taking the power. And he's saying, well, that's not the right thing to do. You know, this is out of the norm. I don't care. Tell me I'm wrong until they stop me legally. I'm going to do it. And we, as Democrats, sometimes, we don't look at it that way. We follow the norms. You know what? The interesting thing is Mitch McConnell fought vigorously and defended the filibuster. And now that is the one tool in the toolbox that Democrats have in the Senate is the filibuster, and may have to do both in the House. But we have to fight with what tools we have available to us. And to sit back and talk about, well, it's not right, we should do for the best interest of the country. Sometimes what's in the best interest of the country is just to fight, to have a stalemate, not let anything happen. Because trust me, the president-elect is going to do all that he can to turn this country 360 degrees. And if we don't learn to fight, if we don't learn to get new leadership who look at things a little bit differently, and we can't continue to be marginalized. We can't have people who, for their own personal interests, Joe Manchin, side with the other side and still say I'm a Democrat. And you can claim you're a Democrat, but Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, as they leave office, they left us a legacy where we could have had the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and we could have done the Civil Rights Act, and several other things progressively could have been done, but our Democrats wouldn't do it. Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema. And now she's going on her way, thank God. And Joe Manchin has gone back to West Virginia, to the empire that he built on coal. And he wanted to be an independent. He wanted to run for president. But he had no core. And it became clear. So why am I doing all of this? Why am I doing all this talking, ladies and gentlemen? I want you to be encouraged. Because we've lost elections before. We had 2 terms of George Bush after that terrible election down in Florida. But we also got to go back to the basics. We got to go out and do the hard work. The hard work is pressing the flesh. They're sitting down on people's turf and talking to them on their own grounds, talking to them about what they like and what they dislike. We have an opportunity. It's going to take 4 years for us to rebuild, recalibrate, but we can do this. So as the darkest hour is upon us, as they say, there's light at the end of the tunnel. So ladies and gentlemen, as I have said to you many times before, we can overcome, and we will overcome this setback. Some of us will work tirelessly to help this process, but we need new leadership. And we have to start on the local levels, like here in Sangamon County, and all the way through the ranks, all the way up to Washington, D.C., Democrat National Committee. It's time to move the page, turn the page, move forward. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to conclude my little soliloquy here today. This is Frank McNeil, Talk of the Town. If you see me on YouTube, subscribe. Hit the link and say you like my show. And anyway, we look forward to hearing from you about the show. Tell me how you feel. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Frank McNeil, Talk of the Town.